Thank you, Dr. Shaila Jafenel, for those kind words. I must also thank Cambridge Africa, the CAPREX, and everyone here present for giving me this opportunity to be here this afternoon. And I find it a great honor for me to be able to address a unique audience where academic leadership, research excellence, and field practitioners meet in a mutually beneficial Cambridge-Africa relationship. It's equally rewarding for me to use this opportunity to share my country's story and my thoughts on how research could support our progress and Africa's progress in general. And the main message I wish to convey this afternoon is that there are really good things happening in development in Sub-Saharan Africa and in Rwanda in particular, where we believe we are establishing an African democratic developmental state. I believe we are proposing a new development model of society, which is driving amazing stories in agriculture, in health, in business, in institutions building, and in transforming living conditions of Rwandans in general terms. We need to have those stories told by voices that have credibility and deep knowledge of the concepts of development. Since we are busy doing, it's hard for us to find time to stand back and place our experience and our achievements in that formal academic framework. So we are asking for your support on that. We would like Cambridge University and others to be our partners in capturing, analyzing, and disseminating these changes, even as they are unfolding. So the collaboration I'm suggesting is a win-win one. We need our universities and think tanks to work with you and be able to tap your deep knowledge expertise as they consolidate their own capacity. As such, you'll be the first to dive in the new grounds we are breaking and mine the new data as it gets generated. You will have the opportunity to study the new phenomena, evaluate them, and generate new theories that will contribute to the growth of knowledge. But in so doing, there is need to create more space for us Africans to be who we are, to tell the stories on our terms, to learn, to innovate, to perfect indigenous institutions, and engage with the rest of the world in dignity, all supported by indigenous research. Having summarized my main message, allow me now to quickly introduce the subject matter in a bit of details. And I will start by defining the African democratic developmental state. Unlike neoliberalist policies that advocate for less government, the developmental state model builds on the premise that the state plays a prominent role in building institutions, including markets, and in facilitating rapid economic progress. A democratic developmental state promotes development and growth, and does so by using the state autonomy to steer inclusion, participation, consensus, accountability, stability, and social cohesion. A developmental state works best when it is democratic. a view that perplexes those who think that developmental state is similar to dictatorship. Indeed, democracy and development are inseparable, but the catch will always be in the definition given to democracy, by whom and for whom. For instance, popular demands to get leaders out of office, like those we have witnessed recently across Africa, have been praised as democratic, while the same popular demands for a leader to stay in office, like this is currently the case in Rwanda, will be perceived otherwise. In my view, countries that can manage to sustain high inclusive growth and macroeconomic stability while continuously improving the quality of life, qualify as democratic developmental states. For the sake of argument, Rwanda is among those. Professor Matt Andrews from Harvard Kennedy School offers one of the best descriptions of how democratic developmental states works. Instead of implementing reforms as signals, those countries are becoming functional over time through implementation of what he calls problem-driven iterative adaptation, the PDA approach. They don't start with a preconceived best practice. Guided by a problem to solve, they would experiment, learn, and move on with a hybrid solution that may not be perfect as long as it is politically acceptable and implementable. In so doing, they broadly engage a variety of players beyond top leadership. He argues that the PDIA's countries constitute good bets, though they rarely escape criticism over their governance system. He names Rwanda as an example. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to share with you Rwanda's experience in these endeavors. The country, as you may know, is among fast-growing economies in sub-Saharan Africa, both in terms of GDP and GDP per capita. Actually, over the last 10 years or so, our GDP has grown on average by 7%, and the GDP per capita by 4%. It has achieved good macroeconomic performance with well-managed inflation and a stable currency. Actually, as I stand here, I'm very proud, as we were named by Emerging Markets the other week, the Governor of the Year in Sub-Saharan Africa. So Rwanda has implemented reforms both in governance and business environment. It ranks high in doing business, competitiveness, corruption, and economic freedom indexes, where it comes among top 10 and most of the time among top 3 in Africa, and it tops the list of East African countries, East African community countries. Over the last 10 years, we have done tremendously well in tackling poverty, reducing it from 57% to 39% today. Extreme poverty was more than halved from 36% to 16% today. Inequality has followed the same pattern, with the Gini index falling from 0.522 to 0.448. As you may know, we in Rwanda have lived one of the horrible genocides of that have ever happened in 1994. And Rwanda had to rebuild from scratch. It took a leadership and a people committed to unity and reconciliation. Inclusion was the key word in all policy steps. A power-sharing rule was enshrined in the Constitution, so the winner does not take it all. So was the gender equality principle, which made Rwanda the first country in the world to have the highest female representation in parliament at 64% today. The country defined its Vision 2020, which kicked off in 2000, and it's being implemented through 5-year medium-term plans, and there is always national and local leaders' opportunity for them to meet in an annual retreat chaired by the president to evaluate implementation of the plans and take corrective measures. Rwanda implemented innovative solutions which are rooted in our culture and traditions. I could name a few of them, including Gacaca, which is a community-based court system. And this Gacaca helped Rwandans to know the truth about what happened during the genocide. It helped Rwandans to facilitate healing, to get justice done, and to move on. And it has done so much efficiently compared to the ICTR, that International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. Rwanda has implemented a universal health insurance system, the Mutuelle de Santé, and has community health workers, 3 in every village, in total about 60,000. And these volunteers have been trained, although not really like academic training or formal training, but these are like ordinary women, ordinary men in the village, and they have been trained to administer some protocol, like curing pain and fever, like providing primary child and mother care, like distributing ARVs and mosquito nets, and so many other things, including advising community members on a wide range of health issues. And this move has significantly contributed to reducing maternal and infant mortality to over the last 10 years. Maternal mortality ratio declined from 750 to 210, while infant and child mortality declined from 86 to 32 for infant and 152 to 50 for the child mortality ratio. Rwanda has actually achieved all the MDGs in this area of health and almost all the other MDGs. Other homegrown solutions, and this is really very important for us because it deals with the issues of institutions and how you deliver and how you make sure that implementation is checked so that policies are not just mere signals. We put a lot of emphasis on performance-based management through a system that is, again, a homegrown initiative. We call it Imihigo. Imihigo, it's like the equivalent of really performance-based management. And these contracts are signed throughout administration. Local governments can sign one with the President of the Republic. I sign one with the staff below me, or a chairman of the board of an institution will sign one with the minister, who is the mother ministry for that agency. So it makes us really focus on efficiency, on timely delivery, and on accountability for our annual plans. A similar monitoring framework is the national dialogue. We call it Umushyikirano. This is an annual convention where all the leaders from national and grassroots will come, and it's a forum for consensus building, for signaling feedback from the community, for holding leaders to account, and for setting new priorities. I can go on with the list of these homegrown solutions, but the main characteristics of the Rwandan development model can be summarized in few principles, which are vision, inclusion, execution, and accountability, all facilitated by the Rwandan spirit, a spirit of dignity, self-determination, and shared destiny. Not to say that all is rosy all the time and everywhere, but I'm giving you examples of things I'm proud of, which we know have worked. This brings me to the point of identifying the role for research and for Cambridge Africa collaboration to support sustained progress in Rwanda or any other African country for that matter. Again, I'm revisiting Matt Andrews' view on the PDIAs. Andrews poses a research challenge around theoretical frameworks against which we benchmark a situation being studied, the hypothesis that we want to test, and even testing methods. Similarly, Danny Roderick emphasized this point by advising academicians to rather devote energy to becoming wiser at picking which framework to apply when, rather than searching for a consensus over the best model. Certainly, Rwanda's story triggers a number of questions that can retain researchers' interest, including questions like these. What is happening? How does it come about? What can be done to make it even better? How can we model it and make it duplicable in other places on the continent? Unfortunately, what we tend to see in written and verbal oral debates is many people questioning what is happening rather than those supporting it, or only pointing out what is not working perfectly, as if nothing is really being done worth appreciating or emulating. There are not enough Rwandans telling the story from within or being given audience to do so with enough degrees of freedom. I'm happy to confirm that with Cambridge University, this is different. I have witnessed good collaboration from this university, very actively engaged in telling Rwanda's story. Proof is that I'm here this afternoon standing before you to share some of our experience at this conference. We really need and value this support. But another observation I would like to make about research when it links to development is this. Development success depends on systemic impacts when health plus education plus economic transformation occur. There is great potential for research to be promoted along systemic lines in order to accelerate transformation rather than one-off studies in health or education or economic areas. Indeed, the World Economic Forum competitiveness surveys revealed that best performer countries are those that managed to make consistent improvements in the three basics, which are institutions, infrastructure, and human capital. The case of Singapore tells us that aspects related to human capital, such as talent, attitudes, and mindsets, weigh high in the equation. The Vice Chancellor this morning re-emphasized this point. Therefore, we need research to support our endeavors in all these areas. As I conclude, I will observe with you that the Africa Rising story of development hides diverse range of performances over time and across countries. But countries that most managed to achieve high, sustained growth while reducing poverty and inequalities have somehow challenged the orthodoxy of the Washington Consensus and applied some version of a homegrown development model, often attracting criticism from outside. A context like this is bound to generate new truths, breakthroughs, and innovative ideas. I will point out the mobile phone services revolution that is happening in our part of the world as a case in point. So, hereby assigning academic research the responsibility to do at least three main things. One, to explore these new theories and models with proper degrees of freedom. Second, to constructively share, critique, and validate the strategies and the outcomes. And thirdly, to contribute to creating a new narrative by speaking confidently and challenging those who seek to undermine or destroy. The role of collaboration is strong here. I think that we in Africa have the content and the willingness to learn. And you, for instance, University of Cambridge, have the greater research know-how and channels. If we connect, the knowledge is properly evaluated, shared, and disseminated, and our own capacity to contribute fully is developed. I will leave you with this quote from President Kagame. The reason is because it challenged me as an academician, though I'm holding these other positions in government offices as well. I hope it will also challenge you in a way. And I quote, "African intellectuals, think tanks, and others who should be speaking up must be fearless in articulating the continent's stories and aspirations for the future." End of quote. I thank you for your kind attention.
Says we have a few minutes for questions, even though we're running late since Dr. Nsanzabaganwa. So please, questions from the floor.
No questions.
Okay, well, thank you very much in that case. There are no questions.